with Brad Baker from Pinball Garage. Thanks for sitting down with me and talking.
Thanks for having me.
Why pinball?
It goes way back when I was a kid initially. My dad used to take us to Malibu Grand Prix. If you're a local, that was over in like Sharonville area.
Okay.
Right off the highway. Do you remember Burbank's Barbecue?
Yeah, I do remember.
I don't know how long you've been in town, but there was right off the highway, there was this place called Malibu Grand Prix, and it was an outdoor go-kart track, only one in the whole area. And then there was indoor arcade, and there was pinball and arcade and whatever. And my dad would take us there. And my brother, Jesse, who actually owns all of the arcade legacies here in town, he's been in the arcade business here in town since almost 20 years, longer than anybody else. He's the first one to bring arcades back after they all died.
Okay.
And he started out in Fairfield, and then he moved to the old Forest Fair Mall, a few places in between, and now he has 3 locations, and he's just merged 2 of them into a mega location in Sharonville, right across from Cracker Barrel, which is cool. So he got into it, and then he got me into the virtual pinball business because he had heard about it, and he said, "Hey, you're an AV guy. I've owned an AV business for 20 years." And he said, "You could build one. We could put it in the arcade and see what people think." And we did that, and it just took off. So it turned into a business, and that business is the one that took me on the Shark Tank and all that fun, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I've since sold that business, but that's what really got me into like really deep into pinball. I started going to all the pinball trade shows. I started hanging out with all the like big shot manufacturer people, and and we had a lot of fun. And like the Texas show, there's West Coast shows, there's New England shows, and these are just mega conferences where it's just a whole bunch of pinball nerds, young and old,
nice,
that bring all their own machines, set them up, and then people pay to get in and play. They're all free to play. So we became vendors there, and we sold our VP Cabs virtual machines there. And then after that, we just went because we made a lot of friends and we just love pinball. So that's really kind of what got me into loving pinball. But you can kind of blame Tom Vanderhorst and Joshua Smith for Pinball Garage.
All right.
It's their fault.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
If you want to know why,
thank them or blame them. Yeah.
No.
It's funny though. Really, the impetus in the beginning of this business was when your dad taking you to the place years ago, and does this remind you of that kind of like bringing you back to your childhood?
It's our first memories, and then of course, time out on the court in Forest Fair Mall.
Yeah, I remember that
was
place.
Like huge, mid-late 80s through the 90s. I was in junior high and high school then. I graduated high school in 94, so like mid-80s to mid-90s was like that influential youth years where arcades was our thing. We weren't getting in much trouble, we weren't goofing around too much, but we loved going to arcades. And Malibu was a place, and Time Out on the Court, that place had like that giant putt-putt with all the crazy stuff. They had the Ferris wheel and all that.
I was just telling my son last night, it's like, man, the place at Forest Fair Mall was huge. He's like, really? I mean, they had everything.
So big.
That was the place to be when you were a kid.
And there was many renditions of it. So Time Out, it was like a Namco branded product, like Time Out on the Court, and it was such a cool, that was like the final heyday of classic arcades. My brother did a phenomenal job bringing all that back, and it started out really tough because they're doing home consoles. Everybody had a PlayStation, an Xbox, a Wii, and it was like, do we really want to get out there? But parents, people in their mid-30s to 60s had children that they wanted to get off the couches, and like, hey, let's go do something, and do something that I remember fun as a kid. And I think that's kind of how it started coming back. And now those kids are in their 20s, and they're like, hey, my dad would take me to Arcade Legacy or wherever. And so now they'll come in, grab a drink, play some games. But it's kind of cool to see all that.
But the reason we were having fun when we were kids at Time Out on the Court or wherever, kids still like it today because it was fun then, it's fun now. My daughter's 5 years old, and when I bring her here, she wants to stand on the little seat. She wants to be right in there. She doesn't even know how to play, but she wants to hit the button.
It's still just as fun. I think it just got lost. It got lost for the convenience of staying home and playing games. And arcades are notoriously not like super cheap. I mean, I guess it's still cheap fun, but if you've already owned all the games at home on your console, in the 90s, late 90s, why are you going out to a place and paying $20-$30 to have fun? You're staying home and doing it. So it started to die off because of that, but it's back bigger than it ever has been. Actually, pinball today is bigger than it was even in like the 80s and 90s.
That's
when it was
crazy.
really big. It's really and the barcade scene has really brought it back. So when you cater to a crowd that has a little more disposable income and is of drinking age, and you can combine it with food and drinks and games, then you do really well. And we did something different than anybody else. Really, most of those places really are like hey, you got to be 21 and up to get in, except for on Sundays or except for like one day. Because Hamilton's such a family-oriented town, we decided day one, like, yeah, we want those folks to come, but we always want it to be family friendly. We always want a whole family to be able to come. Because of that, maybe we sell a few less drinks, you know, because it's not the place to hang out and just drink a lot. There's plenty of great places to do that if that's what you want to do. This is more of a place to, you know, bring the kids, you know, grab some food, grab a drink, and spend the whole afternoon or evening having fun with the family playing games.
Yeah, I was about to jump to. It's not just pinball here. I mean, you guys have great food, you have drinks, you have like this section where you can kind of sit outside. It's kind of everything. You got everything going on.
The nicer weather, our outdoor area is really shaping up. We've got a lot of really cool new plans this coming summer for the outdoor space. Eventually, there will be no parking in our parking lot. It's part of our property here, and it is going to be eventually like a designated outdoor like hangout space with a lot more table seatings. We've got some ideas for some fun outdoor activities that we may bring out there, but it's a great space. There's not too many big parking lots downtown, but there's plenty of parking here. There's parking in the garage next door. There's plenty of parking on the street. We don't really need that parking. So when we move our entire food operation over to All 8 Up, then the food truck will go away and the whole lot will be open and ready to do some cool stuff.
So are we breaking some news on my show here? I don't know if I've ever done that. I mean, was that a secret?
I don't think we've ever like publicly announced it. It's
yet.
not like a super secret. You know, I'll tell people when they ask what our plans are. Yeah. But publicly, this is probably it. So
awesome.
There you go.
Never broke news before. You know, so and then this wasn't your first business. I mean, can you kind of give us, and for kids out there, or people that want to own a business, you know, this wasn't your first business. You had ones in the prior. Can you kind of give us, you know, your entrepreneurial journey? Where to start?
Wow. So it started when I was 14. My best friend Mike and I, who were still really close, we started a business that it was called B&M Installations for Brad and Mike. And we were car stereo fanatics. We were 14, we didn't have a car, but we already owned a stereo equipment, you know. Like we were audiophile kind of kids where we didn't, you know, we both grew up without a whole lot of money. If we wanted something, like we had to work for it. We didn't really have, you know, both of our families had multiple kids, and they just weren't handing out cash for toys and stuff. So when we wanted like speakers or something, we were just figuring out a way to hustle to get it. And we started out, you know, we were 12 or 13, where we'd like buy some giant Sirwin Vega speakers and put them in our rooms. And we both lived in like the basement, so we put them in our rooms. And you know, we'd have this killer sound system. And then when we started realizing, like, hey, we're gonna be driving soon, we want this killer sound in our cars. And we didn't really have enough money to buy that stuff, but we knew we wanted it and we knew we liked it. So we decided to start a little car stereo business in our driveway. And somehow we suckered people into giving us jobs. I mean, there was a dude at my church that had a brand new Cadillac and a brand new Corvette in the very early 90s. And he just dropped them things off and let us go to town on them, which today, like,
you wouldn't do that to some kid now.
Never. Unbelievable that he let us do that.
You couldn't even Google what to do back then either. How did you figure it out?
Crutchfield. So everybody that has ever been, been into audio video had a Crutchfield catalog, and that was like, I got it every month. It was a big deal. And Crutchfield would mail you instructions on how to take the dash out, because they would assume it's a DIY thing. So we just straight up, like, again, you couldn't go on the internet and download it. Now you can download everything on the internet from Crutchfield. But nope, we just, we sent away for like the stuff, or we would buy the like install kit from them, and they would send us the instructions with it, and that's how that started. So we did that for a couple years, just as like we had these cool business cards made. We each still have one, and it had a little lowrider on it, and it was like, you know, because we were like into lowriders back then and stuff. And my first truck was a little lowrider.
I remember the Lowrider magazine. You probably had that.
Yeah, we had lowrider. So we were in a little lowrider club, and we did stereos for buddies, and so that was like my first like a taste of doing business, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I worked at Frisch's. I worked at, I did all the normal teenage kind of jobs. But my uncle owned an upholstery business, and when I was 12, I really wanted some like shoes or something, and he said he would let me start tearing the old cloth off of furniture. He did really high-end reupholsteries in like Indian Hill. Yeah. So he would go and get these beautiful couches that held this ornate woodwork on it, and he would redo the fabric on them. And my job in the all winter long, bloody knuckles, staples, like you're just pulling staples out, thousands of them.
Sounds like fun.
I probably made like $2 an hour doing that. So I did. That was another thing but I got to watch him and how he ran his business, and I saw that when he wanted to go to Lake Cumberland for the weekend, they just picked up and went. He'd go Friday and go, and I was like, man, that would be nice to do. Little did I know that's really not how entrepreneurship works.
You work more.
Usually it means the family goes and you're working all weekend. But it has afforded us to enjoy our family. My wife's parents have a lake house in Cumberland, and being a business owner, you can carve time out, go down there, and enjoy stuff like that. So I've enjoyed that. But I went from that to a home audio business. In between, I spent a little bit of time at Cincinnati Bell in sales for cell phones when they first came out with iWireless and all that stuff back in the day. But the home theater business I've carried pretty much all the way until VP Cabs took off. I mean, AV business has been my longest running business. We still do some higher end commercial, like key card access and cameras and security. We do some wiring for some companies. We don't do much residential anymore. We kind of with other businesses, I have the good fortune to kind of cherry pick the kind of jobs I want to do with the AV stuff. We've kind of phased it out. But because VP Cabs took over as just a big company for me, especially after Shark Tank. That we started that, like I told you earlier. My brother had the idea. I did some research on it. I made one, put it in his place, and people were asking, "Hey, can you make me one?" And it went from making them in my garage to I rented an old space, an old Deb clothing store in the old Forest Fair Mall.
Nice.
So next to my brother's arcade, he had an arcade in there. So the manager was like, yeah, you can have a space. Give me $300 a month and with utilities. And I was like, deal. So it was a cheap way to see if the business idea would work.
Yeah.
I met one of my current employees. His name's Lonnie. He does all our repairs here. He's our repair tech. And he came in and wanted me to build a machine for him. Turned out he was a pinball nut, and I couldn't get rid of him. He just never left. He hung out every day, and it finally ended up feeling bad. I was like, bro, I'm gonna start paying you.
Yeah.
and he became a lifelong friend, and basically my biggest help in getting that business off the ground. So even though that we phased that business out, to this day, he still comes in and helps us with keeping our games working and clean and all that cool stuff.
So, you started in business way back when you were 14. B&M, what was it called?
B&M Installations.
Yeah, and that one's not open anymore, obviously. You don't have that.
Gosh, no, that was like a couple years we just did for fun when we were kids.
But do you look at it, so you've had businesses that aren't still going, they didn't take off, but I'm sure you don't look at those as failures. It seems like there's been a theme that electronics, and you're still kind of in that space. It's a growth.
It always feels like a failure when you're in the thick
at the time.
Of it. Always, because everybody has an aspiration that whatever business they start is going to be hugely successful, and you're going to become a billionaire, and you're going to have a yacht, and you're going to, all the cool stuff. And if you didn't feel like that, then you probably shouldn't be even trying to start a business.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with, having those goals. Because if you don't have a goal, you'll never achieve any of it. But it's really hard when you're in the thick of it and you really thought you had a good plan, but really you probably had a lousy plan because, most entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because they just jump into stuff. Most entrepreneurs don't research and study and
just believe in yourself.
All the stuff that drives my wife nuts, because she's a planner and a studier, and she helps me stay balanced. And it's that in the thick of it, you're like, I wish you would just be the same as me, but you definitely don't want that. It's great to have that really awesome balance of somebody that's like, hey, maybe my wife's come up with some of the best ideas that we've ever had because she can step back and look at it from a more analytical perspective, where I'm just the guy that's like, squirrel, and I'm like pointing and like, let's just go do that. So whenever she's on board, especially with something, I know okay, this is probably a better idea than maybe sometimes.
It takes both types of people. I'm like you, I think. I started a law firm. A lot of people might not even know this. I had a law firm that didn't work before I had the one that did, but when that one didn't work and I jumped to the next one, I was still just as sure this was going to work as I was the first one. Just because this is how I'm a positive kind of person. But you do need people in the back of your head sometimes to
just
look
to
at
help,
it a little bit better.
Maybe rein in a little.
Yeah,
you don't want to rein
crazy.
in the dreams, because that's an important part of entrepreneurship. But it definitely helps to find the balance of where and when to make another step, when to hold back a little, when to, those are things you learn too over time. When you're 15 or 18 or 20, however old I was when I would try different businesses, I really don't have much experience, I didn't go to college. I knew I wanted to be in business for myself, and I struggled with dyslexia all through school, and I just didn't think college would be for me. I would have probably benefited heavily from electronics trade school. I really wish I would have done that. I would have probably been able to jumpstart my business career by many years if I would have done that. So I'm a huge proponent for for like Butler Tech trade school type stuff, man, you can make great money right away. You don't have any debt when you're done with your trade school, and there's so many people hiring for the trades.
Yeah,
so
it's a great shout out for Butler Tech.
Yeah,
it's a hidden gem.
Dude, Butler Tech's amazing.
Yeah.
I went to a private school, and there really wasn't a lot of talk about possibly going into trades.
Yeah.
And man, I wish in 10th, 11th or 12th grade that I would have been able to jump over for anything. It could have been like welding, soldering, like any of that hands-on stuff. I would have done much better, and I would have been less discouraged. I would have gotten better grades. So both of my kids, I told them, like, whatever you choose in life, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be in the trades. It's a very awesome, high-paying, honorable job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing because not everyone has to go to college. You know, I didn't get through college until I was 29.
It's not made for everybody.
Yeah, I went later in life too, and you know, there's ways to make money even without schooling. You can learn from people, practical skills.
Honestly, trades is a way easier path to a good living than entrepreneurship. And sometimes in college, I feel like if you go into college not 100% sure of what you want to do, like if you're not decisive, then you might waste a lot of money. You know, it's easy to waste 30, 40 grand a year and then have that debt for decades. You know, I know people 20, 30 years out paying on college, and they never even did what they thought they were going to do. Yeah. And most people that get into trades stick into trades because right now you can go into trades and you can get out making 60, 80 grand
right off the bat
instantly, and within 5 years you get a journeyman or whatever it is. Bro, you're in like the 120s and up, and then you can work for yourself, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I got some buddies that went to law school and they do fine, but they're like, man, I think if I'd have spent all that money and time and bought a few vans and learned how to do AC and heat, I'd be doing better than I was as an attorney.
If you got 3 or 4 crews running for you,
if
you're doing it by yourself, you can easily make 6 figures. If you've got 3 or 4 crews, then you're doing very well. Yeah. So it's a very quick path to I feel like a very good success and a great business.
Yeah, and like you said, not everybody likes sitting down and reading and studying, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, unfortunately, I think society frowned upon it for a while and made it look like a lesser than type of job. Made it look like even a factory job. We looked upon those as like, oh, that's a dirty job. That's a hard working job. Like, when did we get away from hard work is bad? I mean, hard work is what has built this country into a great country.
Yeah, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. A lot of people I grew up with were construction workers and worked in factories, and I worked in a factory for 2 different factories, and it taught me a lot, man. But there's a lot of guys there just as smart as the attorneys I know, or smarter, and it just, I think it helps me connect with a lot of my clients better, and it just, it is hard work. I worked third shift. It did suck, but I mean, there wasn't nothing wrong with it. It paid my bills, and I had, got my
totally.
Rent paid and all that, but
I got married just 6 weeks out of high school. My wife and I, we've been married coming up on 28 years or so. So I mean, it's been like, we started really young, and I remember I didn't even have a job the day we got married. So right after we got back from Gatlinburg for our honeymoon, I had to find a job, and I found this job at this factory in Ludlow, Kentucky called Barker Fine Color. I'll never forget it because all they made was blue dye. They got giant bags of blue powder in. We would load them into this big mixing thing, and they mixed with salt and some water and some other stuff, and then it would get pumped to this presses, and it would turn into like this clay. And we would scrape every little bit. It was like gold, he said, the owner, and we'd scrape it into these things, and it would get shipped out, and they'd use it for blue jeans and anything that had blue in it. It was just indigo blue. And the problem, it was so concentrated that I came home like a Smurf, like head to toe. And we lived at my grandmother's at the time. We couldn't afford a place to live, and I would have to have a whole set of different change of clothes the second I walked in because I would get that blue everywhere. It didn't come off of me. I swore we were gonna have blue kids for a while, man. It was bad, but I remember it was like $7 an hour at the time. It was the best I could find, but it was honest, hard work. I learned to drive a forklift there, which I still use those skills today.
Nice.
I learned a whole lot of cool things at that place, even though it was a horrible job. Like it was a good stepping stone for me, but I feel like anything I've ever done, even at Frisch's or anywhere else, it was a great. Frisch's taught me that I really like to cook. It taught me that I was good at being a waiter and I was good in front of people. I was 16 years old. So those kind of things, I think, no matter what they are, they help shape what you are going to be.
I can't agree more. Like, I'm an attorney today, but I look back, every job, it kind of like built me and it prepared me for this. I mean, some of the hard jobs I worked in factories just toughened me up a little bit, make me thankful for what I got now.
Yep.
before I was an attorney, I worked at the DNV, and everyone's mad when they come there. So I got thick skin. People are mad at me for no reason.
That's
you know,
a job,
that happens
man.
when you're an attorney. Sometimes my clients are mad no matter what I do.
Yeah.
Or other parties are mad at me because I got to sue somebody.
I never make that correlation in my mind.
One person after another at the DNV kind of.
So you're saying every attorney should work at the DMV for a while.
It was good training
to harden them up, man.
It made me quick. It made me look for details, you know. And I got good with people, and I actually love that job. Most people think
I was going to say,
I loved it.
I was going to say, when you were there, did you hate it?
No, I loved it, man. You got to meet all kinds of people, and most people got cool stories, just like the one I'm hearing from you. If you talk, that's part of the reason I'm doing this thing. I want to talk to people, a couple of people a month, hear their story, you learn stuff about them, you learn stuff about yourself sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's interesting. So, like, what's next, man? I'll let you go here soon, but like, it seems like you got this going. You got the new one at Spooky Nook, that's just kicking off, and then you just got the pizza place all laid up down the road. One of my favorite calzone for sure.
The calzones are so good, man. The Champion Mill Arcade is really cool, man. We've been working on it for just a few months. It kind of came about pretty quick. We had been talking about wanting to get with him and doing something forever, and I finally had breakfast with Joshua one day a couple months ago, and he was like, "What do you got? What do you got next?" Just like with Jerry, you know, because everybody thinks I got something next, and I don't always plan to have something next. Some stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, I really want to get into Spooky because I feel like I'm really good at running an arcade, and I feel like we could do a good job. It would be another tie into the city and the community.
There's a lot of space over there.
There's tons of space. They already were going to do their own arcade, but we knew we could probably do maybe a better job because we specialize in that. So Joshua, of course, called Sam and said, Sam, you know, the guy that owns Spooky, called him and said, Sam, you got to meet a guy. I think this is a good possibility for everyone here. Sam was, of course, looking for more Hamilton goodwill relationships. I think everybody appreciates that. That's local. And man, it was like all of a sudden, it was real quick. So my business partner, Alan, and I, Alan actually lives in PA by the other Spooky. And me and him own a whole separate company that basically own all the games. And we've got a location in Daytona Beach that we ran for a year. We just closed it a couple weeks ago because the hurricanes ruined the resort it was in. So we're not, we may go back there, just depending on what happens with the resort and if it gets fixed up or not. But so we had that location. We had all the games here at Pinball Garage, and then we had been looking for places, whether it was like a restaurant or a pizza place, to throw a few games in and just expand our business. And then this opportunity came up, and we're like, we're going to focus 100% on this and get this arcade open. And then immediately when we decided to do that, the opportunity to buy All 8 Up came about with Tony. Anybody that's local here in Hamilton that's visited there usually would know Tony and Kathy. Their whole families worked there, I think, for like 9 years here in Hamilton. Before that, he had a pizza shop in Fairfield for another decade, I think. So Tony would always joke around with me when he'd come in, because we buy a lot of pizzas from Tony for parties. And he'd be like, you need to buy my place. And I would always be like, yeah, right, I don't need another restaurant or whatever. Yeah. And then we ended up selling a couple pieces of real estate and needed to do a 1031 exchange on the real estate. And then I just happened to be chatting with Tony again, and he was like, I'm kind of serious, been thinking about maybe selling. And I was like, oh, does it come with a building? And he's like, well, I own the building, so it would, I'd sell the building and the business. And I was like, well, I need a piece of real estate, and I would really love to have a restaurant that could hold, brisketology, our barbecue, instead of running it out of a truck. But I wouldn't want to change the pizza menu at all, because people have come to love everything. The calzones, the hoagies, the pizza, the spaghetti is awesome. Like, I mean,
my wife loves the salads.
People go nuts over
loves
the salads. We got messages like, please don't get rid of the salads, because my first thought was like, do people eat salads? And sure enough, because obviously I don't eat a lot of salads, but people love salads. And truly, their salad, their antipasta salad, it isn't even a salad. It's got meat all over it, and like it's delicious. So we didn't want to change it. We wanted to stay true to Tony's recipes. That was really important to him. He had almost had a buyer about a year ago, but they were going to come in and revamp and change everything, and he really didn't like that. And he knew that we care a lot about Hamilton, and we're rooted deep here now with our businesses. And I think he felt like, man, if we could work something out with Brad, it would probably be a really good thing for Hamilton and for their family. Yeah. So Tony is doing like a little bit of an early retirement, I think, for a little while, and then I don't think he'll stop working. He's a young guy still, but. It just was great timing, and we're excited about it. We're in quite a bit of growing pains right now with it, though, because all of our kitchen staff here has been training over there. That's why we had the truck closed last weekend. We will be opening the truck back up this weekend and we got some messages like, we want wings and the Super Bowl and wings. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make wings. We're going to do brisket. We're going to do pork. I've actually got hundreds of pounds of brisket, pork, and wings in the cooker right now that I got to get out here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So we're rocking and rolling in there for this weekend, man. We appreciate everybody bearing with us through as we go through these. I know it's frustrating when you come in and can I get a sandwich? And we got to say, well, All Ate Up is open 6 days a week, and we haven't changed that menu at all or schedule.
Yeah.
But this has been more flexible for me to this weekend we got to keep it closed because we got to put the staff over there and vice versa. So
Right, juggling it all.
when it's done though, we're doing a full remodel over there. The kitchen will expand and be almost triple the size. The dining room will more than double because we're using the space next to the current dining room that he didn't use very much.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother basically parcel there
On the other side.
the other side, and we've got that completely gutted already. We're starting to frame up walls. I mean, it's going to be awesome. A big dining room for more seating. We're going to apply for our liquor license there to be able to serve draft. So we'll have 12 drafts there.
Okay.
So you can grab a picture of your favorite, whether it's from municipal or whether it's a domestic. We're going to keep a real simple beer menu there, but a lot of folks like grabbing a picture with their buddies while they're having a pizza. So we figure it'd be a real nice addition there over there as well.
Well, I know you got to run. I got two questions for you.
All right.
One, I know is it the King's Meal or the King's Menu?
King's Plate.
The King's Plate.
Yeah,
Explain, why is it so important to you to give back and feed the hungry? I mean,
You trying to make me cry on this episode?
no, man,
Are you that guy?
I might do it too. I might do it too, man.
My mom was a children's pastor all growing up, and we were raised under a pew, as they would say.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of her work in the inner city on Vine Street, we got to see how a lot of folks live that you might not get to see if you're lucky enough to grow up in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. And we just saw a lot of people that were super hungry, and they were just people just like us.
Yeah.
And that was tough because I may not have had a lot of money growing up, but we never missed a meal. My dad worked his tail off. He's just a hardworking, also small business owner that worked hard. So we got to see that, and my mom always made it a point to just make sure that she instilled in us to feed people, take care of people. The quickest way to soften somebody up to whatever it is that you're trying to help them with is to get their belly full. Usually,
it's a good start.
It is because you're grumpy, and if you haven't eaten in days, you can get sick, and it's just really good to have a meal. And being in downtown here, there's not an epidemic of homelessness here, but there's still folks that don't have a place to live, and a lot of them live pretty close, whether it's underneath the parking garage or somewhere downtown here. We would see a lot of folks walk by that look like they could use a meal. So we started feeding them. When I decided to do a restaurant, I wanted to make sure that we made a point to make sure that anybody could have a meal if they wanted. And I saw a story 10 years ago, some pizza joint in New York that had a deal where if you came in and you could afford it, you could hang $1 on the wall. And that $1 would go to buy a slice for someone that couldn't afford a slice. And I thought that was the coolest story ever. It was just a real simple act of kindness to maybe help somebody out. And I thought, man, if we can afford just to give out a barbecue sandwich here or there, whatever. And so people found out about it, and we decided to call it the King's Plate, and we set out a little bucket and put a sticker on it. We don't even keep the bucket out anymore. I mean, people just were bringing in tons of money, and it's a real simple thing. We're not a nonprofit. It's just, hey, would you like to buy someone's meal? Throw $1 in there, and we'll ring it in, and we'll buy their meal for them. And that got really popular. Now, because of all the transition stuff, we generally do that on Fridays now.
Okay.
So Fridays from noon to 3 or 4, we'll have people waiting for when we open, and they can get a barbecue sandwich or a bowl of chili or some loaded tots or something.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, the loaded tots that's my son and mine's favorite.
So that's where that came about. We hope to be able to. The community's really helped us be able to pay for that because there's not much margin in the restaurant business.
No, there's not.
So there's not a lot of money. I understand why restaurants can't do that. There's not a lot of money to do it. We have just some ridiculously amazing people here in Hamilton that just get behind any sort of decent cause and and they just run with it. And
it's a great city.
It's really the community that has made King's Plate work. It's because truthfully, we couldn't afford to do it with our own. We were a newer business. The restaurant side's only less than a year old here. We wouldn't have the extra cash to do that. So it's a community that basically our community is buying other people food, and we're just the avenue to make it work.
Nice. Well, last question. You've been in business since you're 14, one way or the other. If you're going to give some encouragement or some advice to 14-year-old Brad Baker, or maybe a 14-year-old kid out there that maybe doesn't want to go work for somebody their whole life, what would you tell them?
If you feel like that you want to be your own boss, that's a good start because I feel like that has to be something that you really have a passion for. You may not even know what you want to do, but when you're young, but you feel like, man, I just want to. you might these days you might watch YouTube videos and see entrepreneurs. Most of the YouTubers aren't necessarily entrepreneurs. They just found a niche and do their thing. But if you want to start a business in your local hometown or whatever you're doing, my biggest piece of advice was most likely you're going to fail. We talked about that earlier. Almost zero first-time businesses are successful. And it's a shame that we call it a failure because it's really not. Like we said,
it's okay to fail.
It's, one of the coolest things about partnering with Daymond John on Shark Tank is his book, The Power of Broke, really talks about your failure is really your next step towards success. It's really, any failure should be a learning experience. If you failed, it's because you did something wrong, usually. Not always, but usually it's just because something went wrong. And if you can figure out what that is and apply it to your next thing, you're probably gonna fail again.
Yeah.
Most likely. I mean, I've got a couple dozen failures under my belt easily, and they are discouraging at the time, but if you can get over that little okay, that business died, the grieving period of the death of your business, right? You get over that, and if you still have that desire, here's kind of how you know if you're an entrepreneur or not, is if you try it and you fail and you're like, I'm out, I'm getting a job, and you're happy, then that's great. Maybe entrepreneurship wasn't for you. Because if you talk to almost any successful millionaire or billionaire, they have gone bankrupt many times. Not just fail, you can fail and not go bankrupt and just start a new business. But a lot of businesses, you go all in. And if it fails, you literally, that's what bankruptcy is here for us for. I've had the great fortune of not ever having to file for bankruptcy, but I know a lot of people that have, and I know a lot of millionaires and billionaires that have been bankrupt more than one time. I just can't imagine if they would have just given up. They were right on the edge of maybe, if you always feel like you're really close, then you're probably an entrepreneur. If you feel like, man, next time I'm gonna get it, then you're probably that person that could do it. And you gotta, the WD-40 guy, failed, it was his 40th rendition, right?
Nice.
The Dyson vacuum guy was over 1,000 failures on his patent for his little mode that he was doing. That guy,
I didn't know that.
That guy is insane how many times he failed. And he knew that he could get it.
You gotta be determined.
He knew. And then he got it long enough for his patent to expire, and everybody copied him, and but he did it. He's a billionaire because he didn't quit. I might have quit after number 237, right? You're like, nah, man, I failed too many times. Some people just have the drive.
And I think it can't just be about the money. I think it's more than that. It's people want to prove to themselves they can do something more than make money.
Most people think they have to jump in cold turkey into a business too. I generally don't do that. I've always had there is nothing wrong with working a job while you're trying to get your business off the ground, because whether you're self-employed all the time or you have a job and you're self-employed, you're going to put the same amount of hours in. You're going to find, you're either going to do it for no money around the clock at first, or you're going to have a job that can maybe help pay the bills. You'll be more comfortable that way. Now it may take you a little longer to get your business off the ground, but at least you may be giving it a better chance. So there's nothing wrong with working while you're hustling your side gig. And if at the point where your side gig is really taking up all your time and money's coming in, that's when you evaluate, man, am I ready to take this jump into full-time entrepreneurship? I think too many people maybe just dive in, all in. Sometimes that works, but that's the quickest path to your first failure. Probably is just quitting your job, walking in one day and said, I'm out of here.
They do on TV.
And I'm starting my own business and I'm gonna be a millionaire tomorrow. That's usually never the case. I mean, it's 3 to 5 years of hard work before you generally are even seeing any sort of a profit. I mean, in most businesses. So stay employed sometimes, and even if it's something just to put some food on the table so that you're not just dying trying to get your business
It's okay to hit a single.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Hey, singles win games.
Yeah, exactly.
Any baseball coach, singles win the games, man. Hits, base hits, get them. Yeah.
That's great advice, Brad. I love everything you're doing. I can't wait to see what you do next. I know you got something else in that brand, I'm sure. We'll see. You got at least a couple more singles.
I'm going to say officially on the record, at the moment, I have nothing on the horizon.
All right.
I've got 3 things going on right now, and we're super excited about that. We're never past the idea of continuing to expand here at Pinball Garage, the outdoor space and stuff.
Yeah.
We'll always be doing little stuff like that, but stuff falls in your lap sometimes, like all ate up. But that's got me busy for a while. I'm hoping I can spend a little bit of time after I get these off the ground, and maybe work a little less for a while.
Bit. That's all right.
Take a couple vacations.
You deserved it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking some minutes to talk to me and giving people advice about and telling your story about running businesses. And I'll let you go get your food out. I know you got to get back here and get it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Perfect. That was good, man. That was good. That was great, man. That was awesome.